Welcome to our Today All Day special on climate change and solutions. One of the biggest issues facing us today, and we're exploring every angle as part of our growing Today Climate Initiative.
It's a key part of our reporting every day, and now we are taking an even closer look at some of the women leading the charge to save our planet.
Featuring pieces by our own Morgan Radford, Blaine Alexander, Kristen Dahlgren, and Ann Thompson.
We'll showcase groundbreaking ways fashion designers are creating sustainable clothing.
And new pushes for school buses to go electric.
How students dealing with climate anxiety are turning fear into action.
And we're going to meet some trailblazing female scientists at NASA using new technology to learn about the climate.
Now, as we know, fashion trends may come and go pretty quickly, but the clothes that are actually churned out of that cycle last so much longer, and many are piling up in massive landfills.
So NBC's Morgan Radford spoke to several women who are pushing the industry forward, finding creative ways to cut down on waste and help consumers stay fashionable and sustainable.
Lights, camera, and sustainable fashion. A new push for a cleaner, greener, more sustainable future from an industry long known for its impact on our environment.
For someone who has never heard of sustainable fashion, how would you describe it to them?
Well, sustainable fashion was born within the fashion industry in order to redress a social and an environmental balance.
Orsola de Castro is the founder of Fashion Revolution, an organization encouraging fashion brands and consumers to reduce their global footprint.
Why do you think fashion needs a revolution?
We need to see an industry that is transparent, which is against all principle of the fashion industry. And within the word revolution, there is also the word evolution. And the fashion industry is an ancient industry that designed itself to be deliberately exploitative. Sounds a bit absurd, but in terms of modernity, the fashion industry is incredibly old-fashioned.
And the backlash from images like these have caused consumers to take notice. Right now, the fashion industry makes up 4% of carbon emissions and throws out about 92 million tons of clothes a year, which is why 60% of fashion executives have already invested in or plan to invest in recycling materials.
So it's a purple dye, a little forsythia slipped into there.
Cara Piazza, a New York-based designer, runs her own small business, dyeing and recycling clothes with plant-based products and shipping them to consumers and larger suppliers.
We will take your bouquets and your wedding arrangements from your wedding, and then we create something that immortalizes the special day.
How important is that reuse process in being sustainable?
I think it's extremely important. I think it's the most important.
Is that what you're doing? Are you reusing items that you dye?
Our clients will send us their old garments. So, like, let's say you have a t-shirt that has a stain on it. We can either rebundle dye it for you or throw it in one of our colors, and then you have a new item.
All plant-based dyes?
Plant-based dyes, yes.
Why is that important to you to do something that's healthier for the environment?
That's a great question. So for me, I just don't feel like I have another choice. I think if we're going to be making something that we're putting out there, it's really important to do it with the most integrity that you can and in a way that really helps the planet.
And she hopes bigger fashion houses will follow suit. Everlane is a clothing brand that prides itself on what it calls radical transparency, sharing with consumers where their products come from.
Many companies don't even have visibility or know where their raw materials are being sourced from, sometimes where even their garments are being made. You know, people are always going to buy clothes, and I think we have to be able to do what we can within the supply chain and really work to start bettering it.
And buyers are taking notice. A recent study showed that 43% of Gen Z consumers shop with sustainability in mind and are willing to spend 10% more on sustainable products. But another report found that while most want to help, 80% of overall shoppers still say getting the best value for their money is the top priority when buying. That's why budding designer Caro Butler, who's a student at the Fashion Institute of Technology, says for her generation, it's important to remind companies that fashion and conscious consumerism can happen at the same time.
As a future leader in this industry, what would you say to current leaders who maybe don't get why sustainability is so important?
I think my generation will really set on the values that we want to see in brands. If a fashion brand wants to be successful in 5 to 10 years, they have to enable sustainable practices, move towards a circular economy in order to keep that generation buying their products.
That's why everything she's making comes from reused items.
This is your professor's discarded arm sling, and you're going to turn it into
a closure for the jacket. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with the rest of it. I haven't come up with a solution for that.
Her professors say starting with this generation of students is the only way to make a real and lasting change.
Well, you know, we are educating the next generation of leaders in the industry, and they are very committed to saving the planet and understand that as a society, we really cannot continue in the way that we have practiced and worked for the past number of years.
Which is why sustainable ethics are woven into the school's curriculum.
How important is education in this process to achieving a sustainable future?
You have to open their mind and make them aware of the steps that they are taking or not taking that are contributing to it or taking away from the issue. So I think it's just the most important thing we can teach them right now.
So this is ground zero when it comes to achieving a sustainable future.
Correct. Because if you're not sending new young blood out into the industry that is made up of dinosaurs like me, you're not going to be able to create a new mentality.
A push for a brighter future and a more sustainable one.
If you're looking to help from your own closet, try repurposing your old clothes, like turning a t-shirt into a headband or a cleaning cloth, or repair what you have to give it a new life. And for donations that just can't be worn, try finding an organization that recycles fabrics.
You've turned t-shirts into like
a blanket.
That's right.
And this I rented.
That's right. and this used to be old t-shirts. Now on to schools and the buses that bring millions of our kids back and forth every day. So many districts across the country are hoping to make a big change.
The U.S. transportation sector accounts for almost a third of the nation's greenhouse gas emissions, and approximately 500,000 school buses make up the country's largest public transportation network.
One national parent-led organization is pushing for all-electric, zero-emission school buses. NBC's Blaine Alexander took a ride on one to learn about all the changes coming.
For generations, it's been a school day staple, the resounding rumble of the big yellow bus. But some advocates hope that will soon change.
The biggest thing you hear right off the bat is it's so much quieter.
Here in Fulton County, Georgia, this school bus is completely electric. No engine, no fuel, and perhaps most notably, no harmful tailpipe emissions.
Where the normal fuel door would be for a regular diesel bus, comes over,
plug in
instead.
Just
plugs it. And there we go.
This Metro Atlanta school district added its very first electric bus to its fleet last year. But environmental advocates like Almeda Cooper hope it's the first of many more like it.
So being on this bus, does this bring back memories?
It does, it does, it does.
Cooper is a national field manager with Moms Clean Air Force, a national group of parents who have made it their mission to fight air pollution and climate change.
What is it about the nature of a school bus that makes them so concerning to you?
We're talking about 25 million children, riding them twice a day. It's idling, it's standing, it's waiting, and those tailpipe fumes, which are dangerous and harmful to breathe, are going into the air. That's not good for any child.
She says the harm stretches far beyond the schools as buses crisscross through neighborhoods and on city streets and highways. In fact, the air quality in Fulton County, the most populous county in Georgia, has received a failing grade from the American Lung Association.
Transportation is the largest contributor to global warming and to poor quality of air that we have. And the traffic that we have in Atlanta is notorious, and lots of it.
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah.
Including school buses.
Including school buses, yes.
According to the Environmental Protection Agency, exposure to diesel exhaust can cause serious health conditions like asthma and respiratory illnesses and can worsen existing heart and lung disease, especially in children and the elderly.
When do you first remember having an asthma attack?
I just remember in elementary school, early on.
17-year-old Rain Blassingame and her mom, Katrina, know the value of clean air all too well. A lifelong athlete, Rain suffered from debilitating asthma as a young girl. Her mom says the attacks would often get bad in the fall.
As they continued year after year, I just noticed, oh, it's happening at this time of the year, every year, at the beginning of school.
Did you turn your attention to diesel-run buses at one point?
You know, as I look back now, as we're getting more information about the pollution that diesel school buses emit in the air, maybe. We know the school buses, the windows are down, the kids they think they're getting fresh air inside the bus, and really the pollution is just coming inside the bus where they are. So electric school buses would cut down on that. And we know the effects that pollution has on kids, like Rain.
It's an issue that's gotten the attention of the Biden administration. The newly passed infrastructure bill earmarks $5 billion over the next 5 years to help send thousands of electric and low-emission school buses to districts across the country. In Fairfax County, Virginia, school officials are working to transition the district's entire fleet, the second largest in the nation, to electric buses by the year 2035. It's a goal applauded by EPA Administrator Michael Regan.
Fairfax County Public Schools is demonstrating exceptional leadership in being an early participant in what we hope will be a widespread nationwide movement. Zero-emission school buses can and one day will be the American standard.
Of the nation's more than 500,000 school buses, electric models make up less than 1%. And industry insiders say transitioning the entire fleet will require more funding and an energy system overhaul.
I think the federal funding is something I'd hit as a super first step. When you get into the broader, needs of converting to or converting away from a petrol fuel system to an electric system, there are massive amounts of energy infrastructure requirements that are only beginning to be assessed in my estimation.
But for kids like Rain, it's a change that can't come soon enough.
So people who have asthma like I did don't have to worry about it as much, and they won't have as many asthma attacks, especially if they have it around the same time during school. Just less pollution in general would help out with anyone who has asthma.
Just better air to breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just this month, Boston's mayor announced the city would replace its entire fleet of school buses with electric vehicles by 2030.
Now, while electric buses may cost more up front, they'll save a lot on the backside of this with maintenance and fuel down the line. And with gas prices these days, that payoff could come even sooner.
Yeah, probably. Up next on our Today Climate Special, we are going to explore how young people are taking action, not just for the environment, but for their mental health, too. Welcome back to Today Climate and the new issues and solutions that are now underway. Study after study shows climate change weighs heavily on younger generations, and that fear for the planet's future is even driving some to seek therapy.
NBC's Kristen Dahlgren spoke to students about the toll on their mental health and how a new generation is turning anxiety into action.
On the lush green campus of the University of Vermont, nature feels like it's always just steps away. But for many students, so does climate change.
I feel like you can't really think about a lot without thinking about climate change and the worry that comes with that.
Emma Wardell is a 21-year-old student here, suffering from a phenomenon so common it's been labeled eco-anxiety, emotional distress caused by climate change.
That could be anxiety-provoking, especially when it's constantly looking at the threat of catastrophes.
She's not alone.
Who here has suffered from eco-anxiety?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
All three of you.
Well, to me, it was just kind of like a feeling of helplessness.
I honestly get a sense of pure sadness sometimes.
I feel like I've, for a long time, always had that kind of dread.
A 2021 study of 10,000 young people around the world found that an overwhelming majority were at least moderately worried about climate change. More than half reported emotions like sadness, anxiety, powerlessness, and guilt. And 3 in 4 said they thought the future was frightening.
What will the future be? Will we have a future? Are humans gonna make it, So those kind of questions are really, really heavy.
Do you feel like your generation's been left to save the world?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the pressure has been put on us we feel that pressure, and that's kind of like dictating our actions and our steps towards the future.
For some, it has become such a burden, they are rethinking reproducing.
On one hand, I'm sure I'll want to someday, but on the other hand, like what lives would those children live?
I'm not sure if I'll have children on my own, but it is pretty tragic that we're actually reevaluating.
I don't know if I can really rationalize having kids in the kind of environment that we currently have and that we're creating. I mean, it's kind of hard to grapple with the fact that something that you might have once wanted, you can no longer have, not because of anything that you yourself might have done, but because like the world has kind of made it so.
We ask at our intake sessions about different things that might worry kids and teens, and climate change has been a topic that's come up quite a bit, just anecdotally.
Dr. Kelsey Hudson is a clinical psychologist and researcher at Boston University, who, like an increasing number of clinicians, now treats young people for eco-anxiety.
So really what we're trying to do is help therapists become trained in how to talk about climate change. There's a kind of a growing understanding that government inaction is correlated with climate distress.
How important is it that young people, or really anyone, I guess, recognize that this eco-anxiety is real, it's a thing, and to seek treatment if they're feeling some of these feelings?
Experiencing climate-related emotions is a very natural and reasonable response to this huge crisis.
Emma now sees a therapist who specializes in eco-anxiety, and she's joined an environmental club that she says has turned into a sort of climate support group. Clubs like hers are popping up at schools and in communities all around the country for a generation that's turning their climate fear into action.
There's got to be more action and less talk.
I like to frame it as we've been drafted into the climate fight.
The fact that I'm dedicating myself to this kind of is empowering in a way.
What types of things do you find help you?
It's kind of simple, but just like being out in nature, like really, if you're feeling worried or sad or anxious about the environment, go out and be with the environment.
A way to refresh and maybe see things through a new lens.
Do you have hope that we as a planet can still reverse things and make changes necessary?
I do have a lot of hope because I just don't accept that as our reality. Just the people that I'm going to school with and that I'm inspired by every day, just seeing how passionate and motivated they are about their beliefs and what they're trying to do, I can't help but feel hopeful for our future.
Wow, it seems like there is some great hope for the future if these are the students who are leading it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, coming up next on Today Climate, we are going to introduce you to 4 incredible women at NASA studying climate change.
Now, at Today Climate, we're spotlighting the women on a mission to save our warming world.
NASA's Earth Science Division studies our planet's climate by conducting missions here on Earth and up in space.
Ann Thompson went to NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, to learn more about the trailblazing women leading these impressive efforts.
As the consequences of our warming world become ever more apparent, these 4 NASA scientists, all women, work to understand what's happening now and reveal what could happen in the future.
From a scientific standpoint, is the world facing a climate crisis?
Well, certainly the changing climate and the distributed effects are creating challenges around the world.
And we see those extremes happening now, right? We see more pervasive drought, we see extreme rainstorms, we see changing nature of hurricanes.
This is not a future problem.
No, this is happening today. We see it day in and day out across the Earth system.
Leslie Ott is a climate scientist looking at where the carbon dioxide we create goes. Dahlia Kirschbaum focuses on climate change and landslides.
Some of the work that I do is looking at how landslides may be impacted by more extreme rainfall around the world.
Lola Fatoyimbo studies the role of forests and coastal marshes.
As they are making oxygen, they are taking up carbon dioxide and they are storing all that carbon in their vegetative matter.
So they're allies in the battle against climate change.
Absolutely.
Leading them, Karen St. Germain, the Director of Earth Science for NASA.
NASA uses the unique vantage point of space, and that allows us to look at the whole Earth as a system, and that's the key to really understanding climate change.
NASA itself is changing. 50 years ago, in 1972, women made up 2.5% of NASA's permanent science and engineering force. Today, they account for just over 24%.
Should people be surprised that there are 4 women working on climate science at NASA?
I hope not.
Everywhere I go, working with the scientists at NASA, I see women, I see people of all different races and ages, and I think that's so important because that diversity of experience, life experience, leads people to ask different questions.
What is the barrier you see for young women to follow in your footsteps?
I think it's really important for young women and young students in general to know that you can be yourself, whoever you are, however you are, and still be a NASA scientist.
For these 4 women, the pursuit of science is rooted in the personal. Lola is the mother of 2 boys.
One of the key roles that we play as scientists is to not only do the science, but also to communicate it and to teach it to the next generation.
Dahlia has 3 children.
I work with my kids to talk about math and science so they're not scared. They really want to lean in and understand it.
Leslie was inspired by her scientist parents.
This was my parents' language for understanding the world, and that's what I grew up with, and I think that's really shaped, where I am today.
Karen, from what she saw as a climate researcher.
My earliest research in earth science was looking at Arctic ice, and it's been shocking to me how much Arctic ice has shrunk over the years.
Now, to help them understand the oceans and atmosphere, a new satellite mission called PACE for plankton, aerosol, cloud, and ocean ecosystem.
Here, let me give you a sneak peek of the satellite. As you can see, it's a work in progress, but once it's finished and launched, it will orbit the Earth every 90 minutes. It will completely cover the planet in 2 days, and it's expected to stay in space a minimum of 3 years.
Beth Weinstein is the project manager.
Hey, Beth.
Hi.
Ultimately, all those 3 instruments together, what will they tell scientists about what's happening here on Earth?
I mean, we're really just trying to understand how all these large parts of the Earth work together. How do the oceans work with the atmosphere? How does the changing ocean affect what's going to happen to us? So there's a lot of scientific questions that we hope to answer with our mission.
Though daunting, these scientists believe the solutions to climate change are within our reach.
Our endeavor, Earth Science, really is an international endeavor, so we partner with agencies around the world, all because when we work together, we can do more than the sum of what each could do individually. We can be more ambitious, and we think the challenges we're facing really demand that ambition.
Is that a template for solving climate change, for stopping climate change?
I think absolutely, because the Earth works as a whole system, we have to work together, and that can start with working together to understand what's happening.
So this is so cool because NASA's Earth observations are freely available to anyone who wants to use their data and can even help study our planet's climate by acting as a citizen scientist.
And that's it for us and our Today Climate Special. Climate change is real and complex, but with the tireless work of the amazing people we showcase today and the others that are still working out there, we know that there's definitely hope.
It does feel like there's some hope. Thanks to Ann, Morgan, Kristen, and Blaine for sharing these important stories today. And check out Today every day on all of our platforms for the very latest on our environment and how we can navigate our changing planet together.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.